Alex here, returning for episode number 8 of Sports the NEMO Way, where we will be discussing Dikembe Mutombo, with Ray defending him as he again was the only one to put him on his list. So let's go over his career real quick so we can hear from Ray. The 7'2", 245-pound center played for the Denver Nuggets, Atlanta Hawks, Philadelphia 76ers, New Jersey Nets, New York Knicks, the Houston Rockets, never winning a title or an MVP award. An 8-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, 6-time All-Defense, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, playing 18 years in the league after being drafted 4th overall, with career averages of 9, 10, and 1 on 51% shooting. So, Ray, lead us away.
Okay, so before we get into my defense, we've kind of been passively talking about this term for like 4 episodes now, so I thought I would throw it into this one since it kind of goes along with Mutumbo, and it's a term called longevity. So, let's see, where am I at here? I want to talk about longevity. It's the elephant in the room, and Father Time eventually catches up to you. Either works for a player's benefit like a LeBron, or it works against the player, in this case, Mutumbo. There's been past episodes where we talked about the reason they got their stats is because they played for so long, but then we hit a paradox of where the player with the better stats and played longest gets the least grief. Now, answer me this, why is that? Because all these players earn their stats just like everyone else, but is looked down upon because they weren't as good as the other players, or because they were the third wheel on a team, or because they were the garbage man on a team. So because they earn their stats just they're like the rest. We keep talking about things that are measured or numbers we can see, but can we see longevity? And still, with us seeing this, opinions are still skewed. So here's the question of the day. Why is longevity a benefit for some and a downfall for others?
Are you really wanting an answer?
Yeah.
I think longevity is good in a sense. But longevity can hurt your career numbers if you're looking at per game stuff. Because if you're somebody that sticks around like a Mutumbo or a Parrish, who we'll talk about again shortly, you stick around and aren't playing. Like you're just a bench guy that comes in a few minutes a game and puts up 2 points and 1 rebound and drags all your career averages down. I think that's when it's a negative and not a positive. But the positive part is I'm not going to knock a guy for playing 18 years in the league, or Parrish, who I think coming up played 21 years in the league. Like, longevity can be a positive. I mean, like you just said, LeBron James is on year 18 and still putting up 25, 7, and 7 or whatever he's playing this year. So, I mean, there is a paradox to it, though. I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Anybody else want to answer before I go into Dikembe?
No, I think Alex put it pretty well.
Okay.
I was going to say just...
All right, here we go. Another high-intensity, high-energy lockdown defender. Dikembe Mutombo, when you played Dikembe before you stepped on the floor, you knew that you were either shooting jump shots all night or you had to become creative, because at this point it was his house and you were very seldom to score a point without you getting a ball shoved down your throat. Not only did he have great defensive skills, but he also had a nice post game. He had a nice sweeping hook shot and a nice spin move, and he could dunk it right down in your face. And when he blocked your shot, he waved his finger in your face just to take you down a notch and let you know it's not in his house. We've talked a lot about if longevity helps a player or hurts a player, and Dikembe's case, it hurt him. His final 7 seasons was nothing like his first 12. He stayed around way past his prime and really hurt his stat line. But, like we went over the stats before, I mean, he was the 2-time NBA rebounding leader, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 8-time All-Star, 3-time NBA blocks leader, and he's 20th in total rebounds, 2nd in total blocks, 7 in blocks per game. I mean, he had a great career, but him staying around really long kind of hurt his stat line for his career. So that's my opening statement for Dikembe.
All right, well, thanks, Ray. Let's go over to Drew. I like going to the youngster first. It's always fun. Drew, what are your thoughts on Mutumbo?
Well, when we talk about like longevity and things, that doesn't really affect like how many total rebounds he got. I just want to say one thing, then we can pass on to someone else. Bob Pettit has more rebounds than Mutumbo.
All roads
Every
lead to
time.
Bob Pettit.
I've got to bring him in every episode.
All right, well, Uncle Doug, what do you think? Where'd you do with Mutumbo?
I liked Dikembe. I thought he was a great defensively. I thought his offensive shortcomings are the reason he wasn't on my list. He scored some, but not as much as quite a few others. As we talked a little bit earlier, as Ray mentioned, the longevity can hurt or help. It might bring your per game average down, but it also brings you up higher on the all-time list. You know, people that don't play as long aren't going to be as high on the all-time list, so that you've got to try to balance the all-time and the game average. I looked at guys like Patrick Ewing compared to Mutombo. Rebounding, Mutombo was a little better, about half a rebound. Blocks, he was about half a block better. But Ewing was like 11 points better. You also look at a guy that I didn't put on my list, but like Bob Lanier. Lanier had almost as many rebounds, 10-1 to 10-3, but averaged 20 points a game. He still came up, his blocks weren't nearly as high, 1.5, but he had 3 assists. So Dikembe just didn't quite make my list.
Wade, you got anything about Dikembe?
Yeah, a little. I was actually kind of I had Dikembe as a honorable mention. I had my top 10, obviously. And then I had on some positions where I had a tough time, I would list like one, maybe two people as an honorable mention, just for the hell of it. But I had Dikembe and Robert Parrish as my honorable mentions at center. Excuse me. To be honest, because I grew up watching part of Mutombo. You did too, Al and Ray. But then I think he was probably. I'm trying to think when I started watching. Probably real early 2000s. That really was. That was maybe the end of his prime when he was with probably Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philly when they made the finals run.
He's the second best player probably with AI. And I think I kind of made a big mistake of I knew he was a beast at defense and rebounding, but I kind of dismissed him without really digging into his stats. And then before this, I looked up his numbers and accomplishments. It's pretty impressive. It's actually up there. Like his defensive and rebounding numbers are nasty. And then I have Willis Reed and Dwight Howard as my 10 and 9. Which made me think a lot. And I started thinking about it a lot, and I had a couple questions. I was like, ooh. And I don't know. Like, now I'm kind of, maybe for the first time on the podcast, I might swap someone, like, think about swapping someone. It was interesting. I like Mutombo. He was really impressive, especially the first part of his career.
I also like Mutombo. And just for craziness, my 9th and 10th centers are also Dwight and Willis Reed, so that's just coincidence. I want to say this. Dikembe literally came in at number 11 for me. I had like 20 guys at each position that I looked at really hard for each position, and then I ranked them and ended up with my top 10 to go into the top 50. And Dikembe came in at 11, so he narrowly missed my list. But I also don't want to turn this into a Grant Hill episode where we all go, oh, we all really like Dikembe, but he's not on our list. So I do have some things here for you.
Okay.
Really what it boiled down to me was Dikembe's shortcomings on the offensive end of the floor. There's no doubt, no way anybody could say Dikembe wasn't a great defender. He was. And he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. I do believe, I don't have the stat in front of me, I do believe he's the only one to ever do that. I don't know that anybody else has more than 3, other than him, obviously.
I believe you're correct.
So that's that's nothing to shake a stick at. And Dikembe is not Dennis Rodman or Ben Wallace and just has nothing on the offensive end of the floor. He was a decent offensive player.
I think he averaged over 10 for 10 years in a row, something like that.
Yeah, I think in
Yeah.
I have.
So he was decent. He was decent.
In 91, 92, he averaged 16.
Yeah, so that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was just hot garbage on the offensive floor or nothing. I'm not trying to say that. But when we're talking top 10 all time, the rest of these guys just offensively were superior to him. So that hurt him for me. And the fact that he has no hardware on top of it also was hard for me to get by. Because I think you can have shortcomings and still be elite if you add something to it. Not that Defensive Player of the Year awards are nothing, but when I think of hardware, I think of MVPs and titles. That's just what I meant by that. But as Wade said, the last two guys on my center list were Dwight Howard and Willis Reed. So I did a little comparison with them, and this is what I got. Dwight Howard and Dikembe Mutombo are similar defensive players. Dikembe has 4 Defensive Player of the Years. Dwight Howard has 3. 2 of the most Defensive Player of the Years we've ever seen. But Howard averaged over 20 points a game 4 times in his career. He's an 8-time All-NBA to Mutombo's 3. And Dwight was the best player on a finals team. I realize they didn't win. But he was the best player on a finals team. And not that this really played into it anything, but he does have a ring now just as a bench player.
He was at least a role player.
He was. I mean, he wasn't the 12th man. I mean, he
was a role player.
He was like 7th man. Came in and gave minutes. And the Reed comparison really boiled down to 2 things. Reed has an MVP and Reed has 2 rings. And I don't really have much else. I like I said, I like Mutombo. I think he's a quality center. I think he just missed my list because of the things I just said.
Back to your defensive players of the year, Ben Wallace also has 4 with Mutombo.
Oh,
well, really?
Way to go, Drew.
Yep.
I didn't know that, actually. He was a monster.
But he was an absolute nothing on offense. Like, we have seasons where he averaged 2, 3.
Like 6 points a game. Yeah. Ray, do you have a rebuttal, or can I go?
Go ahead.
I just had literally just a couple. Here's the ideas that popped in my head before we. I'm not trying to argue with Alex before we start.
Are you
this.
teaming up on Alex
No,
again?
This is not my idea, but these are literally questions I want everyone to kind of try and answer. Okay, because I have Willis Reed and Dwight Howard just like Alex, so my kind of thought process was similar. Reed has a couple championships on some of the most popular teams of all time. Those 70s Knicks, and an MVP.
And Reed was like MVP on those championship teams too.
I
He
think
played
he got-
really well.
He got one. I think did Frazier get one?
Reed may have had both.
Did he?
I think Frazier was a Finals MVP.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was a
I'm
Finals
saying,
MVP.
I thought Frazier got one and Reed got one.
That could be. Yeah, he had
Yeah.
at least one. Yeah.
When I get in my breakdown for best players on a championship team, I believe I gave Reed both.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a case to be made for Frazier being the best player on the second one.
Frazier is also number 10 on my point guard, so they're both 10 on their positions for me. So I think they were great players.
Two of us have Frazier on the list.
I have Frazier on my
Oh, you two.
He's my number 10.
Yes, I have Frazier on my list too.
Anyway, my point guard as far as my point. I'm sorry, point guard. My point as far as Mutombo was, Willis does have the championships and MVPs, but what kind of started when I got to thinking about Mutombo and what he accomplished. One, he did that in the 90s, which is the best center era in the NBA. You had Robinson, you had Olajuwon, you had Mutombo, you had Shaq, you had young Duncan.
Morning.
Mourning was kind of almost an afterthought, and he was really, really good. Mutombo was kind of in that same territory, because you had these, and you still had Karl Malone and Barkley as power forwards. It was a big men era, plus Michael Jordan.
I agree.
Willis Reed got both Finals MVPs, by
Did
the
he
way.
get both?
Yeah, he got
Okay.
both.
Drew is on top of the research
He is.
tonight.
Wow.
I got this.
I'm out of data. But, anyway, my actual point was Mutombo was really, really good and maybe the best era of centers we've ever seen. And second of all, if you put Mutombo on those Knicks teams in the 70s, with 3-4 other Hall of Famers, he probably gets the same results, I think, if not more.
It's a possibility because, like you said, Frazier was there. Earl the Pearl was there. DeBuscher was there. Lucas was there. I mean, there was some definite talent.
They're all in the Hall of Fame, I believe, correct?
But I mean, and Drew, I guess, can correct me if I'm wrong, but Willis Reed was their leading scorer, correct? He wasn't just, out there.
It was probably him or Monroe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably,
Reed
yeah.
averaged almost 19 for his career.
Yeah,
So.
that's what I'm saying. No, Willis Reed is on my list.
No,
Like,
I
I'm just trying
understand.
to bring up a question. Like,
No,
I think Mutumbo, if you switch some spots, I think Mutumbo dominates the 70s. They probably have the same result, I feel like. And his offensive game is probably better than it is in the 90s when he's playing against the greatest centers ever.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
okay, so I can kind of get behind what you're saying. And my question about Reed has always been not that he would be a nobody, but how well would he translate to other eras because he was small.
He would be a power forward now.
Right,
Wouldn't he? Correct.
I think he would be, but power forwards don't do the same things today.
Well, are we talking about today or over a long period? Like we're talking about exactly right now?
Well, I'm talking
because
about,
the NBA right now is so much different than it's ever been.
Oh, absolutely. I'm talking
Right.
about every era.
Okay, like if he goes to the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, he's a power forward. Like you have Charles Barkley, Elton Brand, same size as him.
Yeah.
Today's NBA, well, that screws a lot of people over because it's all about shooting the basketball. But he does go down to power forward, I think, in all the other eras. Today's NBA, I'm not sure what he is, to be honest.
Well, I think he can still play center, but the question we're asking ourselves then is, can he block shots? And majority of his career, he played without that stat.
How tall is he? Yeah, I didn't think he was that tall.
I think he's 6'8".
That's what I'm saying.
I was thinking 6'8", 6'9",
He's not
something
playing
like that.
center at 6'8".
I mean, Draymond Green
Well,
does it.
probably like Draymond.
That's a limited runs. Like,
Yeah.
they're trying to outscore you for a period of time, then they throw Andrew Bogut at you. Like,
Right.
That's.
But you got to
I get what
remember
you're
when
saying, like,
when Reed played, there was also some other pretty good centers. Jabbar was playing then.
Chamberlain.
Chamberlain was playing then.
And you're forgetting a few.
Lanier was playing then, and Lanier was pretty good.
He played against. Did he play? He played against Walton, didn't he?
Maybe at the beginning of Walton's career. Somebody that kind of gets overlooked because he played quite a bit in the ABA was Artis Gilmore, and he was well over 7 foot.
Yeah.
And Gilmore was an 18'8", 12'3" guy, averaging 2.4 blocks, won a title in the ABA. So Reed had to play against some pretty good-sized guys too.
That's true. I mean,
he was bulky though. I
No,
mean,
yes, he was.
He was built. He was a bigger guy.
I'm not really trying to diss on Willis Reed. I'm just trying to say
Sure,
what do you
make
think
the comparison.
Mutombo would do in the 70s. I think Mutombo would destroy the 70s.
At
Not-
7
maybe not destroy,
at
but
7'2",
he would succeed extremely well.
Yeah, I think it'd be different for Mutombo.
He's
not,
already a Hall of
not
Famer
playing
in the
against
90s.
7-footers every night. But at the same time, I don't think we're talking about the 50s or 60s where he'd be the only one.
No, that wasn't my point. But I was just trying to start a conversation. Like, if you swapped them, does Mutombo still get 2 championships and an MVP? Possibly. That was my only point. I was just trying to
No,
start.
I get it. I think we're on the same page. I really do.
Yeah.
I just think there's questions to be asked about how Willis translates going forward. Like I said, I don't think he's ever a nobody. I don't think he's one of those guys where you're like he just couldn't play.
Yeah. But I also think Mutombo goes into every era, and it's one of the, if not the most dominant defensive center, one of the best top rebounders, and a decent to good offensive player. So
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I don't have any problems with Mutombo. He just narrowly missed my list.
when I just looked him up, it just made me kind of double think my 8 and 9, because I was having a scenario for Dwight. I just kind of want to throw out there if no one else has anything to say.
I'm just talking about Willis Reed. He would definitely be a power forward because he's listed at 6'9", 235.
Yeah, so we were right. We said 6'8",
he would
6'9".
He would definitely be a power forward now.
Yeah, for most eras.
But yes, and I think that translates fine to the 80s and to the 90s and maybe the early 2000s.
It's just this era.
It just doesn't translate right now, which may be the case for a lot of guys.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah.
But
Because
also
if you're,
a lot of guys. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was gonna say at 6'9", I can't hear myself. At 6'9", you know, they're asking you to either roll to the rim and block shots or shoot a bunch of threes. And not that I'm a Willis Reed expert, I just don't know that was either one of those things were his game. So I don't know, maybe not. I'm not sure. Yeah. Ray, what you got?
Well, I mean, I looked at some of the other guys on my list. It was like Patrick Ewing and David Robinson and all them. And, yeah, they were a more complete center. But then I looked at, maybe like Dwight Howard. Okay, let's take him for example. Now, Dikembe might have played like 18 years, but we got Dwight Howard, who's probably, did the NBA tour for the last, 5 or 6, and really hasn't put up real good numbers. So I had to kind of like do matchups like I've been doing this whole time and, comparing against each other. And, Dikembe just comes out on top.
In what?
Like, being complete. I mean, we had a time where Dwight was, pretty monstrous when he first come in.
Right.
But since then, he really hasn't done anything but, traveled around and sightseed.
Yeah. I mean, if he's going to catch Dikembe, I believe he has like 4 more years to play as far as longevity. I think he's in year 14.
Are you talking about years?
Yeah.
I thought you were hinting like a stat like blocks or rebounds or something.
I know Dwight is on both the rebound and blocks list, but I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not 100%
If I had
sure.
to guess, I'd say he probably has, being a backup, he probably has a little ways to go in blocks. Now, rebounds, I'm not sure.
Well, I know he's on the list, but Dikembe is number 2 overall.
That's what I'm saying,
in blocks,
like,
so he's
yeah.
not going to catch Dikembe in blocks, I doubt.
Rebounds,
he might. He just passed Barkley the other night, and somebody else, but I can't remember where exactly he is.
He kind of hit on something I was going to say about, obviously, I have Dwight at 9, but
As do I.
something that kind of just came up as a question in my head was more along the lines of kind of what I hit on earlier with Mutumbo. He played against I think he played against 4, 5, 6 people that we all have on our list as center and power forward. Like, it was a big men era plus Michael Jordan who beat them all, but that's not the point. And then Dwight, was playing against Andrew Bynum and old fat Shaq and injury-riddled Yao Ming. Like, Dwight was a dominant. I'm not saying that. And he put up a lot better offensive stats for a longer period of time than Mutumbo. But if you swap them, what do you think happens? Like, this is a curious question. I'm really asking. I don't know.
I don't want to get too much into my Dwight Howard stuff because that episode is like in 4 or 5 episodes.
That's probably close.
But I do believe playing more today, Mutumbo may be slightly better because, like you said, there's not as many big men. Although big men do seem to be coming back in prominence now a little bit. The small ball stuff that fad seems to be dying slightly, but
slowly.
I think the big difference between the two of them is Mutumbo, even as a young person, was never the athlete Dwight was.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah, I can go with that one.
Here's my kind of, the way I was thinking about it in my head. Dwight athletically might be, I won't say the most gifted because that's maybe a stretch, but he's up there with the most athletically gifted centers we've ever seen.
Or players we've ever seen. Maybe. Guys that big don't usually
he's a
move
freak
like that.
But he also was just a stingy brick on offense at all times and just kind of relied on dunks and putbacks. And he developed he got a little better as time went on. Mutumbo actually was kind of the opposite. He was obviously super tall and long, but he actually had a couple moves, fluid, nice moves, but just was nowhere near the athlete. Does that make sense?
No, I think it makes perfect sense. I would say offensively they could be similar in the fact that they both looked robotic on the offensive end of the floor. Neither one of them were fluid and flowing. Like, when you see Jabbar shoot his skyhook, it's so smooth.
Oh, he did it so many times.
Oh, absolutely. When you see Olajuwon make his moves, or
the dream shake.
Yeah, the dream shake. Or if you see McHale up and under somebody, like, it looks so fluid and smooth.
Or Shaq just elbows you and dunks it.
Well, that was more violent.
That's what I'm saying.
Forced his way in there.
It wasn't pretty, but it was. It was going in.
But I don't think either one of these guys, Dwight or Mutumbo, we could say that about them on the offensive end of the floor.
I agree.
The prettiest part of their game was them going up and grabbing a ball that somebody shot.
I agree. These are just arguments, or not arguments, just discussions that popped up in my head that I just simply wanted to bring up. I think they were pretty valid. Neither one of them, I think, they probably both could have been more on offense, especially Dwight. But it just, I don't know. That was the stuff I thought about. That's all I was trying to say.
Here's something I've thought about with Mutumbo, and I don't mean it as an insult to him at all. It's literally just a question. We see this in baseball more than any other sport, but we see guys from other countries come over here, and their age is messed up.
That's true.
And they seem to age really rapidly, and then all of a sudden we find out they're 5 years older than they were. Dikembe got old fast.
Yeah,
Dikembe looked like an old man 5 years in the league.
he was, from the Congo?
Yeah.
Is that right? I know he's
Yeah,
from
Republic
down
of
there
He's from the
Congo.
yeah.
I wondered if he fibbed or they didn't know his exact birth date or year, type situation. And when he was in college, he was actually a grown man, and when he got to the league, he was 25.
Well, the crazy part is, to our knowledge, he played to like 43. So was he 50?
Well, maybe.
Was he a decent
Might
backup
have
at 50?
been.
Was he a decent
Maybe.
backup at 50
Well,
years
I mean,
old?
like what? Julio
That's
Franco
impressive.
was still hitting baseballs at close to 50.
Yep.
I mean,
remember Miguel Tejada, the
Miguel Tejada.
all-star shortstop, and then he turned out he lied.
Fausto Carmona did the same thing. All of a sudden, he's a Cy Young candidate, and 2 years later, he's like, can't throw a baseball. And we're like, what happened? They're like, well, he's actually 35.
Well, I know this is probably the scenario I know it. Wasn't there something to do with Albert Pujols in this?
That some people I've heard speculation. I've never heard any proof over the years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No proof. That's just the most recent one I know.
Again,
My
it's again the Dominican Republic.
Yeah,
Right.
Which
I think
goes
it's
back to
become
almost
yeah,
all these guys.
I think it's become a thing with Dominican players, and
Yeah.
we just guess when they start to fall off. I don't think I think anytime a Dominican player, whether it's founded or not in baseball, and they start to decline, we're like, well, maybe they're older than we thought.
Because it's happened so many times. Without getting too far off subject, you can say what you want about Albert Pujols, but the man hit over 600 home runs, 2,000 RBIs, and has over 3,000 hits. So he can be 68 years old. I don't care. He's great.
Oh, nothing against Albert Pujols. Here's my childhood hero. I'm
Yeah.
a Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I love
Anyway,
Albert.
we should probably get back on track to Mutumbo. But
Well, Ray, what do you got? You got anything else to respond to some of the things we're saying?
I mean, the most thing that drew me to Dikembe was, his defensive skills, and that's what I like. That's my, core spot is defense. That's what I like the most.
I think we see that.
I'm
Yeah.
a Kawhi fan, bro. I got you.
So, seeing him play defense and, just tearing you up on the boards and shoving it in your face with, that finger wag was just great.
The finger wag was phenomenal. When they banned the finger wag, I was so irritated.
No, I actually have something kind of funny to talk about. The first thing I thought about when we got to think about Dikembe is that I couldn't YouTube something that I wish I could show everybody. Because just a handful of years ago, I think it was like a Progressive commercial or some insurance commercial.
Yeah.
And they
Geico.
talk about
It was Geico.
Geico. They talk about protection, and someone goes to throw something in the trash, and Dikembe pops out of nowhere and swats it down and goes, no, no, no.
Yeah.
And then someone tries to throw some laundry in a clothes basket, and he pops out of nowhere and swats it down and wags his finger and goes, no, no, no.
That commercial was great.
It was
It was.
phenomenal. It was, yeah.
Well, I believe we did bring up a few things. There was some good conversation here. So it wasn't completely our Grant Hill conversation where we're all like, I love him, but he's just not on my list. But I will say this, Ray. I know I came at you pretty hard with the Oakley episode. I had no reason to come at you hard with Dikembe because, like I said, he narrowly missed my list. I like Dikembe a lot. He's a guy that played a lot of his career during my lifetime where I was able to watch him. He has a soft place in my heart. I just narrowly missed him off or left him off due to some of the things I said earlier. But I have no problem with him being on your list, and I like Dikembe. This was one of my picks, or one of your picks that was left off my list that I literally didn't have much of an argument against.
Cool.
Yeah, I like Dikembe too. It was just the offensive side of it that kept him off my list. He was great defense, and I love the finger wag. And you're right, the commercial was great, but just the offensive just wasn't there for me.
Are these your closing statements?
Sounds like it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Go ahead, Drew.
I have to agree with Alex and my dad. Just his offensive end, and one of only 2 players that have 4-time all defensive players is pretty special. He was a lot better on the offense than Ben Wallace. All I have to agree with that. So yeah, just if he got a couple more points there, or maybe somehow snuck championship or something else in there, he probably would have made my list.
I mean, I really like Mutumbo. I mean, I feel like I talked about him probably more than anybody on the episode. But I have, like I said, Willis Reed and Dwight Howard at 9 and 10. But I feel like you can make an argument for a swap on either one. I feel like there's a case there to be made. So I'm cool with him being on anyone's list, to be honest. I would have rode that forward defensive player of the year awards hard if I was you, Ray. But that's truly impressive. His rebounds and blocks numbers are phenomenal. But the offensive end is probably his weakness, obviously. But yeah, I'll leave it to you, Ray, to close it out.
Well, I really don't have to ride the 4 defensive players. It's on the paper. It tells itself. But we can. What was that Denver Nuggets team? It was the AC that beat that first seed, first time in like forever that's ever happened.
You got the picture of Mutumbo laying on the ground,
Yeah.
crying, holding the ball at the end of the.
One of the most memorable moments of probably all time, I think.
Well, I mean, it's definitely maybe the most memorable moment in Nuggets history.
Yeah. But I mean, like I said before, his defense is rock solid. You can't get past that. His offense is a little questionable, but sometimes you have to create defense and create offense, and sometimes that's what he did. So I mean, he might not be scoring a point, but his defense is probably leading us somebody else scoring a point.
So I know we just did our closing statements, but I thought of a question, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask
All
it.
right, go ahead.
If, and obviously we're playing if and but if that what year was it? 2000, 2001 76ers team that went to the finals. Yeah. And I'm not trying to take anything away from your Lakers. If they were to win that series, obviously it completely changes AI's legacy. But what does that do to Mutombo's legacy?
He's definitely on our list.
Yeah, he's definitely. If he's the number 2 player on that team, he's on our list for sure.
Yeah.
I think that would help. Yeah.
I would vault him above Patrick Ewing, who never got one.
Wasn't that our Willis Reed argument? He got the hardware.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can still argue it, I guess, with Willis Reed, but then you have the error argument and back and forth. But that it vaults him in a different category, I believe. Probably above Ewing, kind of like he said.
Because Ewing is my number 10, and I would definitely vault.
So are we saying the lack of hardware is more of a glaring thing than the lack of offense? Because Ewing was a far superior player offensively.
I guess it depends on situation and preference. And you can nitpick whatever you want, but it's
I'm
whatever.
I'm not trying to nitpick. I'm just asking questions.
No, I'm just saying in general. You can nitpick at any player or at anything if you feel like it.
You can also look at it that his lack of offense is why they didn't beat the Lakers. Had he scored more points, maybe they would have won.
Yeah, I mean, there was Allen Iverson, Mutombo, Aaron McKee, and Eric Snow. And
George Lynch, Tyrone Hill, the McCullough guy came off the bench behind
it was
Mutombo.
a bunch of defensive stoppers and Iverson shooting it 35 times a game.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's literally what they did. Aaron McKee was their second leading scorer, I believe, and he came off the bench. It was Snow, a defensive first point guard, AI, George Lynch, who was a wing stopper, Tyrone Hill, who was a rugged player in an Oakley-type mold, and then you had Mutombo, one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
Tyrone Lue off the bench, the Kobe stopper, remember?
No, he was the AI stopper for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I flipped it. My bad.
Blue was for the Lakers.
I flipped the team.
the famous step over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swapped the teams. My bad.
So they literally went out and said, let's see if we can get all the great defensive players in the league, put them on one team, and tell one guy to score.
But at the same time, I mean, they made the finals
I was gonna say,
because
they made the
defensively, they were.
Smothering.
You had one weakness and 4 guys that just locked you down. Like and back then you could play physical. So I mean, Snow and McKee and I'm forgetting the forward. Lynch. They were all bigger, bulky, physical guys. And Mutumbo was actually the giant shot blocker. And Allen Iverson has played the passing lanes because he was kind of a defensive weakness. But
Well, I think it's also easier to play passing lanes when you know the guy that blows by you to the rim has to deal with Mutumbo.
well, I mean, Allen Iverson was extremely good at stewing the ball. But when it came down to one-on-one, most shooting guards could do whatever they wanted with Allen Iverson because he was like 6'1".
If.
Yeah, So he had to pick a role, and that was jump the passing lanes, while everyone else played lockdown defense and Mutumbo guarded the paint. And it got him to a championship, but then they ran to Shaq, who they just obliterated everything.
Well, I mean, as great as a defender as Mutumbo was, Shaq tore him up in that finals.
Well, you can't stop a 300 and whatever you want to call him.
Shaq
Pound
tore everybody up.
Yeah, he gave you an elbow, spun, and dunked it, and that was that. Like, okay, he's getting 40 tonight. That's cool.
No, that's it. I just wanted to ask those couple questions. Are we cool?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
sounds good.
So let's move on to our trivia section and see how that goes this week.
Well, I'll go. Keeping with our theme of blocks, in honor of Dikembe, who has the most blocks in a game?
Eaton. I can't remember his first name. Mark Eaton?
Mark.
Mark
yes.
Eaton.
Oh, that's a good guess. He was a hell of a shot blocker. But I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say Mutumbo.
I'll go out on a limb. I'll say Sean Bradley.
Oh, I like Bradley, yeah.
I'm gonna go with Elijah Wan.
Actually, it's Elmore Smith.
Oh, God.
In 1973, he blocked 17 shots
Holy
in a
crap.
game.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
It's cool if I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I actually just looked this up on accident a while back. Which 2 shooting guards have the most career points without a ring? Two shooting guards.
So I'm going to say Reggie Miller and Allen Iverson.
Okay. Good guesses.
Anybody else?
Put that phone away, Drew.
I'm not looking it up.
Put it down.
I was checking the football game. Thank you very much.
Repeat the question again.
Which 2 shooting guards in NBA history have the most career points without an NBA ring?
I'll go with Vince Carter and Reggie Miller.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Allen Iverson and Vince Carter.
Okay. Right.
All right. I'll go Reggie Miller. And let's just go James Harden.
Uncle Doug was correct. It is Reggie Miller and Vince Carter.
Ooh.
They both have more points than AI.
Longevity got him.
No, I thought AI had the most out of all 3 of them, to be honest with you. So Uncle Doug got it, huh? And then he was
Good
it.
question, Wade.
Yeah.
All right. You want to go, Drew?
Yeah, I got my question pulled up. So you got Michael and Will with most points per game at 30. Who is number 3?
Wait. I'm sorry. I was only half
Who is
listening.
third on most points per game?
Points per game? Okay.
Ooh. I'm going to say Kareem.
I'm gonna go. I just rethought my thought. Never mind.
I'll go Kobe.
I'll go Kareem.
Wade.
Rick Barry.
Elgin Baylor.
Yeah, another guy, his career got cut short, so he didn't have the
Right.
downside to bring his numbers down. That's a
He
good
had
one. That's a good one.
27.3.
He retired for like 12 years or something.
His numbers are redonkulous.
Yeah, they are.
Ray, you or me?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
All right. What was the most famous nickname for Sam Perkins?
Sam Perkins.
The Candy Man.
That was Oliver Candy.
I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Wow. I remember watching Sam, but I can't think of a
He
nickname.
played for your Lakers.
I know.
Last time I watched him play, he was like a backup getting ready to retire. So I don't know.
I don't know. Sammy.
I don't know. Mr. Unstoppable.
Nope, he'd come off the Pacers bench and he'd pop a three and it'd be like, oh, there's Big Smooth.
Big Smooth. All right.
I feel like
all right.
Candyman was pretty close.
All right, here's my question. In 1992, Michael Jordan won MVP, Finals MVP, and an Olympic gold, all in that same year. Who was the next player to accomplish this feat?
Kobe or LeBron is my feeling.
Yeah, I'll go with Kobe.
Just to be different, I'll say LeBron.
I'm going with Kobe.
Kobe.
The answer is LeBron.
That's what I'm talking about.
Dun-dun-dun.
Go away.
I believe he did it in 12.
Oh, yeah, with the Heat.
Yeah. Did Kobe the year he won MVP was a first round exit, I believe,
That could be.
because he won his MVP when they weren't after Shaq. and
That's when he was
before they
averaging
got
like
good.
36 points a game or
Yeah.
something nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was when
34
it
or
was.
something. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, the scores moved exactly 1 point this week.
Me?
No, 2 points. Sorry, Wade and Doug both scored 1. I apologize. So the scores are as follows: Ray with 6, Doug with 11, Alex with 12, and Drew and Wade with 14. Wade has caught
Ooh.
Drew again. We'll see how this goes next week. See if one of them can take the lead by themselves. And that being said, that is it for this episode on Dikembe Mutombo. We appreciate your listen, and please join us next week for our episode on Paul Arzon, or as Drew would say, Arizon. And thank you, everybody.